Everyone wants a big roster, it just becomes a little bit harder to actually fill that roster. This is an aspect where fighting games have always shined. If you want to make characters that play differently, first, you have to get across to your audience that they play differently. And that means to make them look distinct. We eat with our eyes and we judge books by their cover. And different fighting games go with different approaches to this. Mortal Kombat is all about American pop culture. Cool ninjas, Bruce Lee, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi. And for Street Fighter, they took a different approach. Here's Dhalsim. Dhalsim is a legacy character, one of the characters introduced in The World Warrior. He's returned in Street Fighters 4, 5, and 6, with Necro sort of standing in for him in 3. Basically, he keeps coming back. He's even the best character in Street Fighter 5. And in every game he's in, he has his signature tools, his stretchy limbs and fireballs for zoning, and his yoga teleports and dive kicks. You can't have Sim without these options. He has all of these in 6, but for whatever reason, Dhalsim is in a very peculiar position. It's really hard to place how strong he is and just place him in the metagame. It's not because he's bad, because there are multiple Japanese Sim players that have secured success. Crimson also has had flashes of brilliance. And outside of Air Gale, which doesn't really matter because dive kick serves the same purpose, Dhalsim basically has the exact same tools in 6 that he had in 5. And in 5, he was the best character in the game. So what's the reason for this shift? I don't think it's the player base, even though Crimson has either been on a different character or a longer hiatus than I've been on. There's still enough representation where I don't think this is the reason. So let's get into it. Dhalsim in Street Fighter 6. Dhalsim is a character that is built around very explicit strengths and very explicit weaknesses. There really isn't anyone else who plays like him. First up are his limbs. Dhalsim is a zoner. He wants you far away so that you're forced to interact with him. While Guile may have fireballs, and Dhalsim does have fireballs too, his main method of zoning are his limbs. Fireball frame data isn't good enough. These go really far, and if you block them from far away, you can't really do anything back. Well, at least you couldn't in other games. Stand heavy kick and crouch medium punch are actually cancelable, though the former whiffs on crouchers, unless they're up close. Gives him one Ed button. And of course, a fireball to supplement it. 2 ways of zoning that in conjunction make his opponent even more antsy. Fast for zoning and OD up to really control space, only from full screen. Helps being drive efficient. But continuing with his fireball, Dhalsim has surprisingly good pressure. The fireball is slow, which means he can use it to get additional turns, either with a teleport or with a drive rush. Even more effective when he can set it up in the corner or after a knockdown. Burnout pressure is also pretty suffocating. Still has the same dive kicks from the previous game, even as a cancelable one now. Numbers are a bit worse. Teleport means that he can keep the pressure up after a knockdown. And the tool at the forefront of his game plan in 6 is Float. Introduced in 5 as a V-skill, and put in 6 as just a part of his kit. Just go in the air and stay there for a while. I mean, what do you do against this? If you watch either of the 2 prominent Dhalsim players, they seem to be taking to the air a lot. They seem to be doing a lot of float. They're not doing this because they want to. Well, maybe a little bit. They're doing this because they have to. Sim has pronounced strengths, but he also has pronounced weaknesses. First off is some very weak defense. No invincible reversal, because of course he doesn't have one. Does have anti-throw options. Instant air dive kick helps in a skill loop game. But the real issue with his defense is that his level 1 and 2 supers are not real reversals. Level 1 is only throw invulnerable, you have a dive kick, this is useless, and level 2 doesn't hit them if they're crouching or low profile. Sim can't stop opponents pressing crouching buttons unless he has his level 3. There's a reason why Dhalsim players are drive reversaling the most out of any characters in the cast. He just kinda needs to do it, because he has no other options. So the buffs were helpful. But he's spending super on level 1 a majority of the time anyway. And outside of being at the effective range of his long stretchy limbs, the rest of his buttons aren't great. These just aren't good enough for him to try to play on his footsies without the aid of these buttons. He's strong here, but once you close the gap, he can be pretty vulnerable. And all of that are his character shortcomings. But what holds him back isn't any of those. I mean, they do hold him back, but there's a nicer sounding point I want to make instead. Dhalsim's real weakness is the universal mechanics. He does not have a good drive rush check. Crouch medium punch is cancelable and neat, but at 12 frames, it's too slow to be consistent. And back medium kick may be 7 frames, but I think the disjoint and hitbox is just not good enough. No consistent drive rush checks. But he has a fireball, right? That's why it's hard to drive rush at Guile. But Dhalsim's fireball is not good enough to be throwing out at such quantities. Okay, once he is in drive rush range, he's not looking good. But you can keep them out of that range, and even check them in that range with your long limbs, right? Problem solved, just press your buttons. Except not really. Even in Street Fighter V, Dhalsim's limbs weren't good enough to be used exclusively. They were a little bit too telegraphed for that. And that's an even bigger problem in 6. There's always a threat of the jump in, Sim is a zoner, that's how you deal with him, and his weak defense makes it that much riskier. But that's not the only thing that makes him hesitate to throw out limbs. What if they get perfect parried? If you perfect parry a fireball, you don't get a screen freeze. It neutralizes the fireball, and if you're close enough, gives an opportunity to punish. But with Dhalsim, if you react and perfect parry, you get in, and get to exploit his weak defense. And if they miss the parry, you're far away, so you aren't even guaranteed a punish. I'm not gonna claim that this is easy or that this is common, but if you combine the threat of the perfect parry, the threat of the jump in, and just plain getting whiff punished, another thing that you don't need to worry about with fireballs, you have to use these zoning tools sparingly. So, Sim can be afraid to zone, and he has to be afraid to dry rush. He's getting smothered by the universal mechanics. These two. But even with these two glaring ways to attack his kit, Dhalsim still wins games, and it's because of the last option I brought up before I went all negative. If you're worried about perfect parry or drive rush, you could just float. Float is really strong. First off, you're over here, and most characters don't have a way to get to you. But for whatever reason, he gets so many options out of this. Land with a heavy kick to preemptively stop the air approach. Land with a medium punch to stop the ground approach. If you're close enough, land with a heavy punch to get a turn. Air fireball to control space. OD gets space. Land with a light to bait a parry, and you can teleport as a feint. You get the zoning that Dhalsim is known for, even the turn stealing, but without the risk of universal mechanics. Now they'll have to rely on what their character can do. And that's the final piece that completes Dhalsim. You zone with limbs and fireballs, don't overuse them but they're still strong. You use your fireball and dive kicks to sneak in turns, and you float to do all that but make it much harder to deal with. And all that is enough to make a character that is good. Maybe? Probably? Dhalsim already doesn't play like everyone else in the game. He's incapable of playing the same footsies as everyone else, and in exchange has other tools to play around. If you try to play him like a normal character, quote unquote, he doesn't work. That has always been the case through all of his iterations. But as much as he doesn't really fit in basically every game, seriously, for the most part, or at least for half of it, these Dhalsim players are playing an entirely different game than us. A game that is far, far too stressful for me. In Street Fighter 6, he's just floating. He's avoiding everyone else. He's avoiding the ground, because he can. But he's still a zoner. We led with that, but here I mean he's a zoner the way that Street Fighter 6 pushes zoners. The drive gauge means that chip isn't really a thing anymore, and if it was, Perry shut that idea down. So zoners aren't about whittling them down over time with chip, they're more about leveraging their space and respect to steal a turn. And that's what Dhalsim does with his fireball, and he can even do that with his float. He may not fit the mold, but he certainly fits into what a Street Fighter 6 zoner is. Every game has a new set of universal mechanics, and how much the universal mechanics dictate the game changes based on how strong they are. It's just that in the case of Street Fighter 6, the developers at Capcom decided that these mechanics would be strong, and be the backbone of the game we play. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, there are arguments both ways, character homogeneity versus raising the floor on the character strength, but I am saying that perfect parry and drive rush are here to stay. They're as likely to get removed as V-skill and V-trigger in 5. Not impossible, but there's no way they would do it. When a character like Dhalsim is already so far removed from everyone else, he needs the universal mechanics to keep him grounded. Not literally. In fact, the universal mechanics is part of the reason he ended up so good in 5. Adding V-shift as a universal defensive mechanic raised the defensive floor, and that certainly benefited someone like Dhalsim, who had more questionable defense. But now, all of a sudden, Dhalsim is a victim of the universal mechanics. One of them theoretically shuts down his zoning, perfect parry shuts down a lot of things and is really helping us get a solid definition on reactable, and the other one is an approach option that on paper he can't really stop. Granted, you should still just jump at him. He shouldn't feel comfortable throwing out limbs even if you don't perfect parry him. The middle ground options and non-invulnerable anti-air don't mesh well. The universal mechanics are working against him, even though in practice, adding float really overwhelms the mental stack, which is why these are not getting perfect parried. But if you watch Sim do his thing, I have to be honest, I don't think this is what a victim looks like. He innovated, he changed his game, and now he's able to succeed in spite of the universal mechanics and not because of them. even though I don't really feel like congratulating him. It's also why it's so hard to get a solid read on how good this character is. When there are so few players playing in such an unorthodox way, it's a bit hard to filter through frustration, unfamiliarity, and actual strengths. Again, there are not a lot of Dhalsim players, and even fewer ones that are at the highest level. Crimson even got his namesake back. All this to say, I'm not sure if he's even good, but I am sure that Dhalsim is not the most enjoyable to play against. Now, if there only was a character that made the matchup very one-sided. If that character arrived, I can promise that I'd be very happy about it. Oh, and the people who wanted a Luke video for whatever reason, if nothing changes, I got y'all next week.